Okay, today we're going to go over how to make blocks because normally when we start a project, the block is the first thing that we're going to try and figure out how to make or what we're going to use because that's the bulk of what your quilt is going to look like. Let me go over a few things in blocks. When you start out and you hit new block, we get the choices of pieced block, applique block, pieced and applique, or create serendipity. Serendipity is mostly if you have a block that you want to kind of randomize. So we're really not going to touch that very far. We're going to first start out with the pieced block. And I'm going to start here so I can explain the top toolbar in blocks. When I click on pieced, it gives me the choice of easy draw, poly or poly draw. Polydraw is if you're going to be making an eight-sided project, like a star that has 8 points, a circular design that has 8 points, and it basically makes templates for you. Easy draw is what you're going to be in mostly. It's doing straight line drawing or a little bit of curved. You can put curved in easy draw as well, but gentle curves normally. So when I click on Easy Draw, it brings me up the toolbar above the screen where you're going to be drawing your block. Some of these things in here are very important. Your snapping options are very important, but let's start out with what snaps are. On your block, you can see little dots. Those are grid line points. They are where the snaps are. Right now, my block is set for 6 inches by 6 inches, but it only has 4 horizontal and 4 vertical snaps. You would adjust this. And normally what I do is I give myself a snap for each 1/4 inch. If you're making a much more detailed block, you can go even higher than a 1/4 inch snap, but you have to multiply it out by 6 by, like I'm going to say 6 times 4 is 24. And I'm going to put 24 in my horizontal and 24 in my vertical. That gives me enough snaps that it's at each 1/4 inch. You can see right now, you can see a black dot in each 1/4 inch. Sometimes when you put a large number of snaps in, you don't see a dot for each one of them. It puts the major dots in. And then if you have made it for more, like if I go twice as much, I go to 48, you still see what looks like 24 snaps, but there are hidden snaps on each of the 1/8 inch now versus the 1/4 inch. And it will snap if you turn on your snap to a specific place. It will snap to that 1/8 inch. So when I say turning on your snaps and turning off your snaps, I am referring to the snap options. You will find that you use snap options a lot when you are working in designing your blocks. And I have to do this myself, when you want to try and remember which snap is what, you can roll over that option and it gives you a description. Snap to the grid points on the workplace, snap to nodes of a drawing, and snap to lines and arcs of drawing. Now, we're going to draw a simplistic block so I can explain what grid points, nodes, and obviously lines and arcs, what it means by those. So let's just make a 9 patch. And I'm going to teach you one other thing while we're making this 9 patch. This little grid tool to the left, if you click on it, you can tell it what type of grid you want. I want 3 columns and 3 rows to make a 9 patch out of this block. So I could change that if I wanted it to be a larger number or a smaller number. Like if I wanted to go to a 2 patch, I can set it to 2. And then I put my cursor on the top left corner and I pull it all the way to the right hand bottom corner. And now it's given me a 2 patch because I have, or a 4 block because there's 4 there, but there's 2 rows and 2 columns. Now I told you I want to make a 9 patch. So I just undid what I was going to do, and I am going to up it to 3 by 3. Now when I take and put it in the top left corner and I pull down, it gives me 3 rows and 3 columns. And that's a quick and easy way if you're making a if you're making a traditional block and it has these in it, then you can do it that way. Now, let's talk about the snaps again. So to demonstrate what each snap means, I'm going to start with snap to grid points on the work table. Now, you can see the dots are the work points. And I told you because I have 48 here that it's actually 1/8 inch. So right where I have my cursor, there should be a snapping point. And just to show you that it's there, I'm going to go to snap to it. And I'm going to snap to another 1/8 inch point down here. Now, those were invisible points. I wanted to demonstrate that because I have 48 by 48, it's snapping to 1/8 inch points. So there's one example. I'm going to undo that so I can show you that when you go on one of these unhidden points, you can snap from them to another one. And I'm going to show you how it snaps to it. I'm not right on top of that point, but I'm going to let go my mouse and see it snapped to that grid point, the dark one that I was right next to. If I had been closer to the 1/8 inch point, it would have snapped there. So
what is that one called? Snap to grid?
snap to grid points on work table. So those are the grid points on the work table, the little dots and the hidden little dots. Now we're going to switch to snap to nodes. Well, right now, the only nodes I have are these dark black dots that are right on the outer edges. I'm going to go ahead and act as if I'm going to color this block. And what that does is if you hit color, it automatically makes nodes at any intersection. So when I hit color and then I go back to draw, you see it has added nodes in each of the corners where lines intersected. What that also does is make each of these lines individual, whereas before they were one line. So now each one of these is a single line. So when I click on snap to nodes of drawing, and it's the only thing that's clicked on, when it's dark like that, I am only asking it to snap to the nodes of the drawing, not to the points or anything. So if I go back to drawing a line and I go just outside of this little dot, it's going to stay there because I do not have snap to grid points. I have snap to nodes. And these black things are nodes. So when I get really close to that node and I let it go, oh, it should have snapped there. Let me double do that. It snapped right to that node when I got close enough. And I'll show you by getting in closer. Now here's another quick trick. The way I'm getting in closer is I'm holding down my control key. I'm using my mouse roller and I'm putting my cursor where I want to go. So as you can see, when it snapped to the node because I have snap to nodes of drawing on. All right, here's another little hint over on the left-hand side. if I click on this magnifying glass with the square in it, it will bring me all the way out to see everything on my block. So now I get to see everything again. I'm going to undo. Now I could undo that right now because I haven't gone to color and back. If I went to color and back with that line there, it would not let me undo. So make a note of that on when you're thinking about things.
Debbie asked how to undo.
Undo is Control Z, or you can use the arrow to the left that says undo. Now I'm going to unclick Snap to Nodes of Drawing, and I'm going to click on Snap to Lines and Arcs in Drawing. Lines, these are all the lines that are in here. So when I want to go with a line and start over here, and I will snap to this line. Now, you would think you could get right on top of it and snap without that being on, but it's notorious for sometimes missing. And then you have to go redraw your line if you miss it. So I'm going to see how far away from this I can get and snap it on. See how I was away from the line and it snapped to the line for me. So those are the three different snaps. You can use them together. If you are wanting to go from a node to a line, and here I'm going to undo with a Control Z again, you can put on snap to lines and snap to nodes. Again, I'm just drawing a line and I want to go from this line to this node. And it snaps because I have both of those on. Same thing with snap to grid points. But if you turn all three of them on, it's kind of hard to know where it's going to snap to. So I would recommend that you only use two at a time. So let's switch from lines to snap to grid points. And let's use a grid point up at the top here. And let's snap to this node. So the reason we bring this up is because this is one of the most important things to remember to turn on and to turn off when you're trying to make accurate blocks the way you want to see them made. Uh, when I first started working on this program, I didn't know about the snaps. And I would go through and I'd design a whole thing, and then I go up to color it, and I would find some of my lines missing because they hadn't snapped to the line. I had just missed the line, or I had just missed the node. So the line would disappear because it doesn't know where it's supposed to be affixed to. So, and I can demonstrate that for you. So if I have these off, and I just simply put a line here that's not attached to anything, and I go to color, well, it's not attached to anything, so there's nothing there to color into. And then see the line disappears here. Or if I go from this node and I try and hit that node, I didn't hit it, and I go to color, again, it disappears. So if your lines are disappearing when you are trying to draw a block, mostly the reason is mostly because you don't have your snaps on and it's not connecting up to another line. Do we have any questions?
Can you undo a line that you did and then, but you don't have the undo button?
Okay, once you've gone to color and back, I cannot undo,
So what do you
but
have
you
to do?
can erase them.
Okay.
So if you go to pick
Mm-hmm.
and you pick this line, you can hit your delete button and it will be removed. Okay?
Okay.
Or if you wanted to edit that line, say instead of having okay, I'm going to make a block that I know I've seen before where it doesn't have that line, and this line goes from corner to corner instead. I'm going to turn on my snap to nodes because I want it to snap to this top node. You guys can see my mouse running around, right?
Yes.
Okay. So then I'm going to grab this node because I have edit on, and I'm going to snap it to this node. And then I'm going to repeat down here because I know I've seen this block over here too, have this change. And I'm going to edit that one. And now I've created a block that has the straight here with a half 45-degree triangle on both top and bottom. So is that, you got that? Does that work, Deb?
Yeah, I see it. Thank you.
Okay.
What are the other horizontal and vertical? I noticed that they changed to 48 at the top too. It's just
Okay.
to the left of snapping options.
So this also has a graph paper cells
Oh, there we go.
function. So if
Okay.
you wanted to work with graph paper, now I've never worked with graph paper before, except for at school. And but if you're used to that, you can turn the graph paper on and you can change it to whatever you want here. So if I wanted to have 3 and 3 with the graph paper, now I have, you see the dotted lines where I removed the lines?
Mm-hmm.
That's graph paper.
Okay.
A lot of people are used to using graph paper to design. So if it's one of the things you like, you can switch to that. And it's just a reference point in the back. There are no snaps to it though. You can also change your, say you design a block and then you decide you want to do something different with it, but you want the information there for reference points. What you can do is you can choose your lines that you want to change. And here's another quickie. If you hold down your shift button, you can choose more than one line. So I'm holding my shift button down and I'm choosing lines. A quicker way to do it is hold down your control button and hit A for choose all. You see how it highlighted everything when I hit control A? Now I have all of those lines chosen. I can then make them a reference point for me by converting the selected segments to guides. Where that helps is if you've designed a block and then you say, oh, I really wanted something else. I don't want this diagonal there, but I want it over here. But here's my reference. I don't want to forget what I did. Well, there's your you just converted your selected segments to guides. And here's something I don't know. We're going to try undoing that to see if it works. And then it did, it worked. So up at the top here, that's what these different toolbar things are right above your block. To change the block to what size you'd like, to change to snaps to what you would want to snap to. I'm going to go back to 24 so we're actually seeing all of the snaps visibly. If you want to work with graph paper and then changing the graph paper size, your snap to elements, what you want to be snapping to, and changing it from converting it to segments that are guides, just for reference points. There's one more up here, and this is hide or show the image in your tracing images. When I went over last week, I briefly showed you that you can take a picture and bring it in and put it behind your block so that you can use it for tracing elements. This button right here will allow you to hide your tracing image or bring it back depending on if it's shaded or unshaded. Or I should say this tool is turned on. When it's turned on, it's blue. When it's turned off, it's gray. Just the same way when you look at your snaps, when they're turned off, they're gray. When they're turned on, they're blue. So that explains the toolbar above. Let's talk a little bit about the size of the block. You can design your block at any size you want to. And then you can change it to a different size when you're putting it in your quilt work table. Why do I bring this up? Because sometimes it's easier to design a block in like a 9 patch would be easier with a 9 by 9 block because mentally you can see it coming quicker. The 6 by 6 works too because it's 2 inches by 2 inches by 2 inches. Well, if you're designing another block that might have different features that would fit better into a 10 inch by 10 inch or a 12 by 12, or you can make this any size. It does not have to be a square block. You can also make it in a rectangular shape if you want to. So note that you can change your block width and height to whatever you want to when you're designing. If I think I'm going to make a 10 by 10-inch block and it's easier for me to work in 1-inch increments, but eventually the block's going to be a 24 by 24, then I'm going to make it a 10 by 10. So think about that when you're designing a block. Let's go ahead and show you how you can draw an arc. Now, arcs are a little difficult sometimes to recreate, but what EQ allows you to do is you can draw the arc and then you can adjust it. So when I click on arc and I choose snap to nodes, I can draw an arc that goes from this node to this node. And it just gave me a little notification that if I wanted the arc to go in the other direction, I would touch the space bar to make that happen. So I'm going to erase this and I'm going to show you when I do want it to go in the other direction, and it's starting to. Then when I take and touch the space bar, it flips it over for me. So I think this block's looking cool. I think I'd like to have more arcs in it. I am going to remove the 45-degree angle lines by clicking on pick, clicking on the line to highlight it, and then delete. Same thing down here, clicking on the line and hitting delete. And I'm going to add more arcs to this block. And I'm going to continue to use the nodes, snap to nodes. So it's going in the direction I want. So I'm going to let it go through, snap to node. Down here. And the way I move that up is I just rolled my roll bar on my mouse and it went up. That's in the right direction for my eye. And this one is going to be backwards. So I'm going to touch my space bar and it's going to flip it over for me. So that's how you would draw arcs. If you wanted to adjust these arcs, say I didn't like it that rounded, I would click on edit, choose the arc, and then it gives me a way to use the nodes on the arc to adjust it. Now, right now, both the nodes are right in the center here because the arc is very 90-degree-ish or circular. If I put my mouse on top of this node right here, and I push down my mouse, left-hand mouse button, and pull, it lets me drag that arc around. If I wanted to make more of a curve in one direction, I would have to grab the node up at the top. That's showing, because right now it's showing a 90-degree arc when it's in this position right here. This is totally feel, and that's why it's important sometimes to be able to put a tracing image behind it, should you want to do. But this is how you adjust your arcs. Okay, any question on arcs?
Yes.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I was muted trying to get. All right. How did you get it? I missed the part where, okay, I got the part where you were able to change the arc, go in different directions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But then up in the corner, how did you get that part, that node to work?
Okay, so I put my mouse on top of it, the arrow, and I used my left mouse button to grab it, and I just pulled it around. I have my left mouse button depressed, and I continue to move my mouse around to change the direction, the how much arc you want to change.
Okay, mine is somehow I'm not able to grab that. I don't have that dotted line.
Okay, so did you click on edit?
I'm on edit.
Did you
Yeah.
click on the arc itself? It's dark.
Oh, do I need to? No, let me
Click
click.
on the
Okay,
arc
I
itself.
clicked on the arc. Now I see it.
Now
Okay,
there should be
got it.
two nodes there for you to be able to grab.
Got
One
it.
is basically grabbing the arc itself and moving it to whatever level you want to. And
Mhm.
one is to change the angle of the arc.
Okay, that's cool. Thank you.
Okay. So on the left-hand side, it's also showing that you can add nodes to this. And if you wanted to break your arc up, you can add nodes to it. Why is this important? Well, if you're trying to recreate a flower and there's a imperfection in the flower, you might want more than one node on your arc. So since I have this arc highlighted, if I say break it into thirds, it adds more arcs for me to work on. And it gives me more nodes to play with. See how it broke it up? Now I can make more bubbles if I want to. I can change each one of these. I find this more helpful when I'm making applique than when I'm making a simple block. Uh, if that makes any sense. Most of the time when I'm working with arcs on an easy draw, it's a gentle arc that I'm trying to recreate. And I'm undoing right now to try and get back to what we originally had. So that's what these little add nodes are for. Should you want to make more than one arc in an arc, or if you wanted to also uh, change, you see how on the line, it let me edit it and make more nodes on the line. And while I'm still here, I haven't gone to color and back. It should let me undo that. And it did. So the only time that it doesn't let you undo is after you've been to color and back. And I say that because I've done that a bunch of times and then I go to try and undo something and I can't. I have to delete it off and then put it back on and fix it that way. So,
And you might want to mention that if you want to save your work in the process, add it to your sketchbook. So if you really mess up, you can go back to a certain point.
right. So what Carmen is saying is right now I have this in here, but I have not saved it to my sketchbook at all, my project sketchbook. Um, and if I click on this right now, it's going to ask me for, because it's untitled, it's going to say name this. And I'm going to name it. And now I have a project named. And if I go to my sketchbook, this block without color is added to my list of blocks. And these other blocks, remember, are what the default blocks are that are in there. This is EQ's default blocks. And down the line, again, I'll show you how you can get rid of those if you wanted to start out with no blocks in your list of blocks. So, and like I said too, when you look at that block, there is no coloring in it at all because we didn't put any coloring in it. Okay, so, and if I change it, let's say I just invert all of these. And I never knew if it would snap to node when we're doing edit. And I'm going to try that on this one. Nope, it didn't. So I'm guesstimating that I've got that right on the node. Not on the nose, but on the node. Okay, so I made it different now. And I'm going to color this one just for the heck of it. Ah, here's a good lesson. All right. So it colored all of that. It didn't just color in the place I wanted it to. Okay, so the reason that it did that is because there is some open hole someplace for it to actually, that color to seep through to all of these blocks.
Ah,
And that's an issue, okay? Let me see what it does when I'm down here. See how it just colored in that area? So I only have a problem up here. So there's something that's not touching a line someplace. And you got to go back and investigate that. And that's one of the things you can do to make sure when you're working with crazy blocks like this, that they all are right and working. So let me go back to draw, and I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to click on this line right here.
how
And
did how did you zoom in?
okay, so zooming in, the quick keys are holding your control button and using your mouse wheel and pointing at where you want to zoom. All right, that's the quick way
Got
to
it.
do it. And the reason I'm teaching you the quick way is because the non-quick way is very cumbersome. The non-quick way is you hit the zoom button over here on the left-hand side. That's the plus in the hourglass. Then you come over to your block, and where I want to zoom is going to be right here. So you put a block around it by holding your left mouse button and drawing a box. Then it zooms in for you. And oh, maybe I didn't zoom in far enough. So you got to zoom in again by doing the same process. And it zoomed in further. Now, if I want to zoom back out using this method to the left, it only zooms out as far as your last zoom in is. So you see, that's why I'm teaching you hold the control button and use your mouse wheel because watch how much faster this goes. And see, I zoomed all the way into where I wanted to. And when I want to zoom out, I just do the opposite by pulling my wheelie back. Okay?
Lynn,
Yes.
I'm using the keypad on my computer and not a mouse.
Okay.
Are there keystrokes to do that?
I have not investigated that. Okay, so up at the top left hand, you
Oh,
see the
okay.
drop down boxes?
Mm-hmm.
So control plus plus goes in quick. Zoom out is control plus minus. Little, I don't, I've never tried that. Let me see what it does for me when I do that. Control and my keypad, I don't have a keypad on the right, so I gotta hold down shift and do plus. Where's my plus? Plus plus, and see, it's not working for me. Yeah, I can't do it because I don't have a keypad. So do you have a keypad on yours?
Yes,
Does it work when you hold control?
it is. It is
You hit
working.
plus plus
Yep.
and then minus minus?
Yes.
So I guess if I was going to use this a lot, I invested in a $20 Logitech mouse that's USB compatible. They also make them that are Bluetooth compatible now too. We have a Bluetooth one with Uncommon Threads computer that we use for the meetings.
And Lynn, I just discovered that the extra plus sign means control and the plus sign,
Okay.
control and the minus sign.
Oh,
Does that make sense?
in addition.
Control plus the plus,
Yes.
and then control plus the minus.
Yeah,
I
but you don't
gotcha.
hit plus, you hit minus. So you
Okay.
use control and
So
minus.
hold the control button and hit your plus button and it should zoom in,
Correct.
and then hold the control button and hit the minus button and it will zoom out.
Yeah.
And that's a cool one. Control 0 is
Yes.
to go out. Let me see.
That's something that they got from Mac.
That's a good one.
Ah, yeah. I think I'll start using that. Control 0, so that
Yeah.
when you're zoomed in like this and you hit Control 0, it brings you back to full screen. Okay. So we're
Thanks.
thank you. That was great.
Yeah,
Now,
thank you. That's better for me than the mouse, actually.
all right. So right now, if I was still pursuing to make this block, I would have to find out where the connection isn't coming in properly, so that if I wanted to color only this part, it would only color that part. And it has to do with where the nodes are snapped to. Um, I'll show you what I'm meaning. I'm going to go back to taking this out. Or wait a minute. Let's see if we have another learning moment. No, it doesn't give me the choice. Okay. I was just thinking that it might give me the choice to make a straight line here out of what I've got instead of the arc. And I think bringing those together will do it too. But I'm going to go ahead and hit pick and hit this line and delete it. Hit that line and delete it. And I'm going to again have these. So I'm going to show you, because these are also considered grid points. It will also snap to the here to here because those are considered grid points. So it's snapping directly to those grid points. Now let me show you with the color, just to prove my little point. This should only color at the top, because we now have a connection between these lines and the sides. And here I'll show you what I'm with the lines. I'll show you. Edit this. It snapped. It's still doing it. Okay, so most of the time I don't see it happen in the easy draw where it misses. See that mess? It misses the line. Usually it's when you're drawing applique that somewhere it didn't snap to itself. Because applique will actually draw a line and leave it there for you. We're gonna show you with applique stuff in just a minute. All right, I think I've covered everything in basic easy draw blocks. Ladies who have done this before, am I missing anything?
No, but I do have a question about block sizes.
Okay,
Okay, I have a beautifully drawn complex block that's 6 inches by 6 inches,
right.
and I want to add a 1 inch border on either side, but I don't want the perspective of the 6 inch block in the center to get stretched.
Okay.
Is that more advanced for something later
Is
on?
that,
All right,
can
you're
you go to
saying
serendipity and frame it?
I've not
But
worked with serendipity like that, but if she wanted to learn how to do it here, I would say, okay, so if you got a 6 by 6, but you want to make your center a 4 by 4 with this design in it and have a border around the outside. Is that what you're kind of saying?
I'm saying, say I want a 1 inch border on either side.
On either side.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're going to make it a block that is, okay, so if I wanted to change this right here, what I would do is take and make all of the lines, highlight all of the lines. Again, you can do that by picking, holding shift, or you can control A
Mm-hmm.
once you're in edit. And so you see they're all highlighted. Also on the side here, it gives you a grab. You see how the arrow turns into a double arrow?
Yeah.
I can then change my move my pieces over and match it up with the 1 inch. And same thing on this side, match it up with the 5 inch. And then take my line and make sure it snaps to the grid points. I mean, the nodes. Make sure it snaps to the nodes and start at the top node and go to the bottom node. Hang on a second, I gotta move this toolbar out of the way.
So is that snapping to the 1 inch mark
This one that I'm drawing right now,
when you had the whole thing held
you know,
selected
I
and you were
don't
stretching it?
I don't know if it is or not. No, I don't think it is, because if you look down here, this one's not in the right place right there. So let's go back to edit, undo, and select all. And I'm going to focus in pretty good. Okay, so let's see if I hit snap to grid points on there and turn off snap to nodes. See if it snaps to the grid points. Okay, yeah. Did you see it snap?
Yes.
All right,
Okay.
I'm going to teach you one more quick movement. If you hold down your shift bar and you use your wheel on your mouse, it moves it side to side. Okay? That just is a helpful hint. And as we're going through lessons, I'll continue to tell you this over and over again because these things do help. So I'm going to move this over to this snap point and see what it does, Christine.
Okay.
Watch. Oh, it didn't snap there, but let's see if we go back over here, if it snaps to what I want it to snap to. Yeah, it did snap. In my opinion, that worked. Because when I look down here, you see how it snapped to the right place?
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing over here. So now, ooh, and I'm going to get to try out my Control-0 to bring back just the whole thing. Now, when I draw my line from 1 to the bottom, all of those should be lined up because I snapped it in the right place. Okay, so let's test this theory. Let's go back to color and let's draw colors in here. You notice how the color is staying in the spots it's supposed to stay in?
Yes.
That means it is snapped all to the right places because all of the cross points are there and working. Am I going too fast for anyone? Are we doing okay? So this coloring in helps you know that all of your lines are touching either the side of the block or other lines in the block. That it's closed in those spots. Does that make more sense when I say closed in? That means that this triangle is closed in on all 3 sides. And this rectangle is closed in on all 4 sides. So the color stays in there.
And what usually keeps you from doing the color correctly is you got some invisible disconnect between the 2 lines. It
Right.
looks like they're connected. It looks like it's snapped to the nodes, but you didn't have it set on snap to the nodes, so it's not quite. And it's very frustrating.
Right. So like I was saying, check it out with the color after you draw it. All right. I think
If you have it snapped to nodes, sometime when I draw the line, I try to actually go a little ways past the line I'm connecting to make sure it's snapped to the line.
Yeah. Okay. So that's a good point, Carmen. If you draw a line and you really want to make sure it crossed that other line, you can do this too. You can start out on the far side of this and put all the way across like this And when you go to color, it's going to get rid of that extra. Watch. See how it divided that triangle into two? Now I have two separate triangles there. Or one triangle, one trapezoid, right? Is that what that's the name of word of it is? Because I went way past it. And that's what I was before, again, before I learned about the snaps. That's what I ended up doing, was going all the way across so that it would just make sure it crossed that line. So these snaps have enhanced my life with EQ a whole lot. The other thing I want to tell you right now, I have not saved this. And if I go over to look here, I still only have that one over there. So take and save as many times as you think you want to, because you can fill this whole thing up and then go back and delete them out. If I don't want this one in here, I can delete it by just hitting delete right here. And it says, you sure? And I say, yep. And it deletes the color first, and then it deletes the block. So you can get rid of blocks you don't want, but you can't remake from thin air. You got to remake it to remake it. So there you go. I'm going to go ahead and hit add to project sketchbook. All right, let's discuss about Applique this time. I think we've hit enough of the easy draw stuff. So when I go to new block and Applique, it gives me two choices for Applique. Applique on a block. If I'm going to make a heart block for somebody, I want it to have a background to it. That's where Applique on a block comes in. If you're going to make a quilt that has lots of different blocks in it and some of them are applique, you want a background to it. Well, with motif, if you're going to make a quilt and you want to put some applique on the quilt after the fact, that maybe crosses over two different blocks, or you want, like I made the fish quilt I made, and what I did was I used motif on that so that I could put it on my quilt after the fact, because I made the background quilt first and then I made the applique to go on it. So motif does not have a background. It only has the applique. So that's the difference between the two. Let's choose on a block. When it comes up, it has all of the same type information above the block in the toolbar. What size block you want to make, the snaps, again, the graph paper if you want to use it, and the snapping options. But it has a few different other snapping options over here. I haven't investigated these too much, but they're fairly self-explanatory. Maybe they're not. Snap to align segments. I'm not sure what that is. And joining segments when drawn, if you have two different pieces of applique and you want to join them together, then I'm pretty sure that's what that means. But we'll have to investigate those more when we get deeper into applique. Right now, it gives you plenty of tools to work with when it comes to drawing applique. Shapes, ellipses, and rectangles. Most of our applique is made of these things. So if you have something that looks like a teardrop, like a petal of a flower or a leaf, then you can draw these right from get-go. I mean, all you have to do is click on one of these shapes and then go and draw them. It gives you all of these other choices down here so that it makes it quicker and easier for you to manipulate your applique products. If I draw a leaf in this direction, and then I want another leaf that's going in a different direction, all I have to do is click on pick, choose the leaf, and say I want to clone it. Then I can take and flip it in that direction or flip it upside down, which actually looks like the same leaf, but it isn't. And then move it where I want it to go. I can rotate it. It gives you general rotating information here. The most used rotating information, 90 degree, 180 degree, and 270. But there is another way to go further if you want it at a 30 degree instead of a 90 or a 45. You can right click your mouse on top of it and you can choose rotate. Right here, if I wanted to change that to a 45 degree, I would type in 45 and click OK, and it does it at 45. Where this comes in handy is if you're trying to recreate something in like a picture, and you want to use these quick methods to make your product, but then you want it to get at the right angle. You can take and it doesn't give you a way to rotate it by rolling your mouse on it. The only way to rotate it is either with this rotate or with these rotates. And sometimes you just have to play 1 degree at a time if you're really wanting to get exact. You can do resize at percentages if you're good at that. For me, resizing is better when you use the mouse to grab the corners and resize your product.
Lynn, how did you get that leaf over there in the first place?
Okay, let me show you from beginning. When I went to shapes, over here it has all of these different shapes for you to choose from. I happen to choose leaf. If I wanted to choose teardrop, I would click on teardrop and it highlights it for me. Then it gives me my pencil over here. Where I want to start, I put my pencil and I press down my left hand mouse and then I drag it away from the starting point, holding that left hand mouse down
Okay, thank
until I get it to the size I want to get it
you.
and the position I want it to be in. So it's usually better to try and rotate it now than it is to rotate it later, okay? So you see how much easier it is? I'll show you. If I'm going to make a flower, I'm going to snap it to a specific point, and then I'm going to rotate it out to another point. Like if I'm going to this third point, the center, then I can also do it again over to this third point center. And keep doing it until I have all of the petals I want to get. Unfortunately, I have to move this bar out of my way because I can't see. So back to the third point center over here. Now, you understand what I'm saying, third point center? I'm snapping to this third point on the grid. I'm starting at this center point on the grid, and I'm going to this, it's actually ½ inch by ½ inch point on the grid. So whenever I start here, I'm getting the exact size of each other petal because I'm snapping from the original place to a exact point down here, a third point, which is the ½ inch. And they don't look alike, do they? I must have not started from the very center. I did not. See, here's the very center point. So let's try that again. I'm going to undo by Control Z. 1, 2, 3, 4 times. Now I'm going to locate the exact center, which is 3 by 3. And I'm going to go out to this row that has three here, which is 1/2 by 1/2. Starting again from exact center to 5.5 by 5.5. And I've got my snaps on, so it's snapping there. And again, 5.5 by 5.5. And then 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch. And I'm meaning the snapping point there. So now they all look alike. And if I wanted to go from that center again up to the 3-point up here, I could make some more petals. Now they don't look the same size, but the 4 that I make in the middle there are going to all look the same size in the end. And I'm just using my left-hand mouse button, pointing at a specific spot, holding it down until I get to the other specific spot and letting go. So there, I made a funky flower. If I want to add to that flower and put a circle in the middle, I can use an oval to do that. Or it shows a circle. You take some getting used to, though. You got to know when you are starting, like I'm pushing down on my button again, and I'm pulling out. And I'm going to go to the same spot on the other side, and then letting go. And that gave me a circle. It just takes some playing with. And always remember, when you're drawing applique, you want to draw the most background applique first. If you accidentally don't, you can click on pick, and right now my center circle is highlighted, and I can make it the furthest back. Watch, when I click on send to back, it now sends that circle behind the petals. Because when you're making applique, you always start at the most furthest away from you applique. So if I said, oh, but that was wrong, I can bring it to the front. Now, does that change anything about the stencil you make from this? No, the stencil will still come out as a full circle, but the picture of the applique, when you put all your colors in, will look more correct if you have the applique in the right direction. Like I will show you. I'm going to go up to color my applique.
Can you show us what it like the prints out to after you color it?
Sure. So let's color this pretty flower. And see, it gives me a background to color because this is not a motif. This is a flower with a background. So let's make the background. See, it colored the whole background. And then we're going to make all the petals. And watch as I click on it, it kind of shows you where it's filling in the other colors. All the way back behind that. Okay? And then the center. Now, when I go back to draw, if I send this to the back, this piece to the back again, and then I look at the color, that's the way it looks in the picture. And if you took and printed a picture, and let's go to print and export, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. You can print your block out. And that's what the block is going to show you. So you have a visual representation of your applique as to how you want it to look in the end. All right. I'll preview this so you can see this is what it would look like when you printed it out on your printer. All right. If you had accidentally had this in the back and you went to print out your block, this is what it's going to print out for you, which isn't a true representation of what you wanted. Now I'm being ridiculous, but that gives you an idea of what I'm talking about.
So when you're actually ready to do the applique, what do you print? Are there templates or?
Yes, let me get it back to what it's supposed to be. And then when you go to print, you would be printing out your templates. And it gives you all of your templates. It gives you the very background, so you know how big your background piece is supposed to be. Gives you every single petal, even if they're all the same, and your center circle. If you don't want to print out all of these, it has a nifty delete feature. So if I know that I only need one of these big flowers, and let me get closer. See, this is where, you know, the zoom in, zoom out that I showed you that's more cumbersome. In this print feature, you have to use that zoom in, zoom out feature, because if you don't, you can't zoom in and zoom out. So see, it brings it closer, and it gives you all the letters. So F, G, H, and I are all the same. So since I have F, G, and H here, I only need I to make one template, to be honest, because they're all the same. So I can highlight that one and hit delete, and it goes away. Highlight that one, delete, and it goes away, and so on and so forth. And if you, and here again, when I want to zoom out to see everything, I hit zoom out and it goes back out there. If you don't want your background because you know what size you're making, or you're going to make it a little bit bigger, you can get rid of that. And then 3 of these big ones. Okay, so now I've really got all of the applique pieces I need to print. And you can move these around. Say you wanted to save paper, which I do a lot with EQ. I always preview when I'm printing out stencils, because if you don't, it will print you about 5 more pages than what you really need, because you can move these around and get them all onto one page. So if I wanted to try and only use the main page here, I can even move it over to there and print it out. But I wouldn't, obviously I can't fit that in there. So, and you can rotate these so that you might be able to fit them in places and move them. See, like I could put that one there and it would work. I'm just giving you these little, and I'll go back over this again as we're going along, because it's something that can be forgotten. So then I would hit print and it would print it to my printer. So, okay. So I do not know why it's giving me foundation paper piecing to be able to print here. Let's see what it does, just to be curious. See, it didn't give me anything because there's really no foundation to print there. So this must be a glitch somewhere that it thinks it can do it. All right, back to design. Each one of these can be used. There is this thing called Wreath Maker. Wreath Maker is nice because I was just putting the flower petals in. If I wanted to do it quicker, I could take and do it quicker. If I take a shape like the leaf, I went into shapes, clicked on the leaf. I'm going to drag a leaf. Oh, hang on a minute. It's got the background in here. Let's start a new block just so I get a clean drawing space. All right. So I go to shapes, I click on leaves. I'm going to draw the leaf from the center point because I still have the snap on to just below the 3 here. Now I want to make that into several leaves that are evenly spaced in spots. It's highlighted, and I can click on Wreath Maker. And it says, well, how do you want to make it? This is what it's going to look like if you cluster them and you have 5 leaves and they're at 100%. You can play with this right here. I like that. I like that. It gives me more of a flower look. Or if you want to make an applique that's all the flowers like that. And I can make them fatter too. So this is a really nifty function to use if you're liking to make applique flowers and applique different styles like this just by coming into the wreath maker and changing it around like that. When you're happy, you hit OK. It clusters it for you like that, and you can go and keep designing, like putting in your center spot again by clicking on circle. And this is going to be a little hard for me because I can't see the snap points. I'm guesstimating the snap point is right here. And also, okay, here's a quick help too. Look up at the ruler. You see the little line on the ruler up at the top that's by the number 3? That little line helps me to gauge where my point is that I'm trying to get to. So I started up here at 2 1/4 and at the 3 point in the center. So if I go down to 4 1/4 less than 4 and try and get that line on the 3 and on that 1/4 point, it should snap and be a complete circle for me. And it did. And that was by using this line up here that moves around when you're on your grid. Okay? Everybody understand that?
Mhm.
Okay. It also gives you where the width of what you have right here and the place that it's placed at with the accesses. So if you want to fine tune things, you can. Fine tuning is what we will be using when we do custom quilts down the line after we've learned all the basics. All right. What haven't I hit? Now, I haven't gone to ellipse or rectangle because they're just another function just like shapes. If you want to make an ellipse, it gives you all the tools right here to make an ellipse. I have never made an ellipse in a applique, but there might come a point when you want to make something that's an ellipse. Rectangle, square, same thing. It gives with corners or with rounded corners. Again, you can use that when you're drawing things in an applique. So this is the basic idea of applique. One other thing is this autofill. I was drawing some applique not too long ago that was really detailed, and it had a lot of places that you wanted to be right on top of each other. And when the applique is filled in like this, you can't see everything. So this little hide show your fill is very handy. When I click on it and undo it, it shows you only the outlines. So then I can manipulate these points that are underneath this circle. So did you guys get that and understand about that? Because that is really important when you're working with applique. This filled in look is when you want to see what the final applique looks like. This unfilled in look is when you want to be able to manipulate points that are under other applique points, that are under other applique that's in the foreground. So right now, these petals are in the background, and this circle is in the foreground. So that's why that's important. And
Would you use that to like maybe take some of the bulk out of the center and
yeah.
make those less petal shaped?
So I was working with some applique and I had an applique expert with me, and I was asking her questions that what would she like? When I do some of my applique, I want these petals, and I'm going to zoom in with my control wheel in. I would want these petals, let me choose, to not come all the way inside like this, okay? And I had something, So here's a good thing to think about too. Remember I told you we could use this for your guidelines. So I'm gonna try something I've never tried before. I am gonna copy. I did Control A to choose everything. Now I'm gonna copy this piece by Control C, because you know in the olden days when we had all the quick keys for copy and cut, Control C happens to be copy. And again, up here in the drop-down boxes, you can see that. That's why one of the things I really like about EQ, they left their drop-down boxes so you can find all of your quick keys right up there. So now I'm going to Control C to copy, and then I'm going to make that a grid lines. And I'm going to see if I paste it in. Okay, it has paste highlighted, so it should be able to do it. All right, and now I'm going to put those right on top of this. So I have a reference point, okay? Did everybody get that? This is new ground for me, actually. I've never done this before. But I'm going to try and readjust by editing this right-hand bottom pedal to get rid of the bulk underneath the circle. But I have the reference point, and I'm going to need to add some more nodes to this so I can do it. So by clicking on the side I want to add nodes to, I can add a node, and then clicking on the other side, I can add a node to that. Now, the reason I put these nodes in is because I'm going to try and move this out to here and make these nodes come just past. Okay, and I'm going to tell you in more detail about what I'm doing in just a second. Grabbed the wrong thing. So these little bars that I'm pulling and pushing are actually handles for the nodes. They allow you to adjust the length of the curve and the extension of the curve. For each of these applique pieces, there is handles. You just don't see them unless you choose to see them. And they're a way of fine-tuning your curves that you want to get. So you saw I deleted nodes and I added nodes. And I also changed what the node is like. Over on this side, you can have a corner node. You can have a smooth node. A symmetrical is basically a smooth node, but has the same distance on each side. And cusp is like a corner, but it only has one handle. It moves both sides at the same time when you're using a cusp. You can also, in Applique, change a curved line to a straight line or a straight line to a curved line. So I know some of you who don't work in this might be a little confused, but we'll go into this more down the line. If you notice when I'm moving this line, this is moving all at one time because that node is actually a smooth node. So both sides move at the same time. I don't want that to happen. So I'm going to choose that node and change it to a corner. So now I can move each of the handles individually. So I'm going into more than I probably should for general overall stuff, but I wanted to show Sally that some people, when they do applique, want their applique to come out just past this, but we've decided that making it go right to the point of the other applique is better, because when you go to print these out, and I will show you, I now have that petal exactly where that circle is. I'm getting a little ticky here. Now, when I go to print and export, and I say print my templates, you notice this one applique right here piece here is the one I adjusted. It adds your seam allowance there. So when you go to use this piece, you can leave the seam allowance flat because it's going underneath that circle. And then the rest you can fold under so that you get a petal, but this little extra right here is all that's underneath the circle. Okay, okay, Sally?
Yep.
All right. So back to draw. So these little tabs up here take you from place to place. You all remember that from our introductory. So when you're working on one piece, you'll be switching between those to do things. And we can go to color and color it here too. You can print from here. Notice again, when I touch the different drawing tools, it changes what you can do in those drawing tools. Okay. All right. Have we missed anything? Oh, we have right here. Right now, I am in using my pencil with curves. If I wanted to switch to straight lines, I can switch to straight lines. But remember, this is applique. So one straight line isn't going to get it in applique. You have to draw a closing applique, what will close it. So I have to draw all the way around with my lines in order to get a piece that is actually a piece of applique. I'll show you when I have the autofill on. If I go to draw, it shows the line, but it doesn't show a closed-in box. Like I said, I have to finish the applique in order to get, and it's giving me a hard time, a closed-in box. See, something is not, remember we were talking about something's not connected? Let me go zoom in, control wheel in. See how that's not connected there? That's exactly what we were talking about. If I went to color and back, that would disappear. So what I have to do is I have to edit it and choose, and I have to connect this node. It did it for me because it's snapped, but I'm going to show you something. Oh, it did snap together. How do you like that? Normally, when you're working an applique, you have to, here's the open end right here. That's why it's not showing it as closed. Normally, you have to pick the two nodes with your edit. And holding down my shift button, I'm going to edit and highlight this other node. And then it says, well, what do you want to do with those two nodes? I'm going to join those two nodes. See how it made a color in there now? And I'm going to control 0. Now I have a triangular applique piece there because I made sure all the points were connected. Okay, that was a happy accident. All right. Anything else that I'm not touching?
Will you cover motif in the next
Yes.
or the next time you deal with applique, I
I can
guess?
tell you right now. Basically, motif is the same exact thing, but what it leaves off is this background block. You see back in the background, this dark, this coloring back here. It's saying that there's a block back there that you have to use. Motif leaves that off and only gives you the foreground applique. That's really basically the two differences, but I'll show you that next time.